Balake. Where is Balake at?
My name's Blake.
Do you want to go to war, Balake? I'm for real. Aaron.
Hey, Aaron is right here, everyone. Welcome back for more SPTV, where every day's a great day not to be in a cult. Scientology done messed up. Now, primarily, they done messed up by being a multi-billion-dollar international family-destroying human trafficking cult. But specifically, they done messed up in Denmark. Last night, I did a chat with my friend Cyril Chikay. You can see the title and the thumbnail of that chat there. If you haven't seen that, I definitely recommend that you do. It's actually the second chat that I've done with Cyril. The first one was about 10 months ago, and I've known Cyril's family since probably since I was 13 years old. In Denmark, a former Scientologist and author named Robert Dam has, I'm going to share with you the first book that he wrote about his story in Scientology. His book is called The Defector. You can get it on Amazon, as seen right here. That book did very well and was translated into multiple languages, and that's why it's available for sale in English in the U.S. He just came out with a second book, and it's just newly released, so it's still only available in Danish, to the best of my knowledge, and I think only for sale in Denmark. I'm going to be doing a chat on this channel soon with Robert, so I'll get clarification on that. But for the life of me, I could not find any way to show you guys his second book. But his second book is, instead of being about his story, it's about the story of Danish Scientologists who worked as basically child slaves for Scientology in the Sea Organization in Denmark. And this book was published, and my understanding is that pretty much all of the stories in that book are of people who do not want their identities known publicly. So in the book, different names are used. The press wanted to promote this book, but they didn't have any of these former Scientology child slaves to interview. And Robert says, well, there is another former Scientology child slave who's not in my book, but who is already public with his story and not anonymous, and he lives right here in Copenhagen, and that is Cyril Chikay. That is how Cyril's story came to be reported in one of the most respected publications, one of the oldest and most respected publications in Denmark. This story's kind of caught fire, and it's resulted in Denmark, the Danish government, announcing that they're going to be officially investigating Scientology. So last night when I was doing the chat with Cyril, I showed you guys the, well, here, I'll just show it to you again. This is the first article that was written. There's been some follow-ups. There's been some mentions in other publications, but this is the primary one. And I always struggle to say this. Berlingske seems right. And you can see this is not translated, but what I have for you today is the translation. And I'm going to read that for you. And the translation comes to me courtesy of Scientology Up North. Mirjam, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. I feel like I'm definitely butchering it, but Mirjam, however you would pronounce that with a Danish accent. Mirjam, thank you very, very much. Okay, so for this one, instead of screen sharing with you the Word document that she sent me with the translation, I'm actually just going to read it. It might be a little awkward because I'm not looking at the camera, but I'm just going to read it for you guys, okay? It says, the original article published in Berlingske newspaper, 27th August 2024, written by journalist Christina Hillström. Okay, title. After stories about slave-like conditions, politicians want to clean up Scientology. Better today than tomorrow. After a series of articles in Berlingske about conditions in Scientology, which are described as modern-day slavery, a broad majority in Christiansborg will now intervene. And I believe Christiansborg is the seat of the government of Denmark. It is completely unacceptable, is the reaction from the political leaders. In Denmark, children have signed contracts to work for 1 billion years, after which they have worked far more than most adults every single week. It is clear after Scientology defector Cyril Chikay has told his story to Berlingske. It is a story about how, as a mere 16-year-old, He signed a contract for a billion years with Scientology's elite unit, the Sea Organization in Copenhagen. He is told how he worked from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. every day of the week, and also about the pressures and punishments carried out by Scientology, and about knowing that a farewell to Scientology was also a farewell to his family members in Scientology. Berlinska has also told in a number of articles how the religious organization Scientology, which has located its European headquarters in Denmark, has bought up a number of properties in central Copenhagen. Scientology now owns properties worth 424 million Danish kroner in the heart of the city, partly as a result of a deliberate strategy of acquisitions. Okay, so that's about $63 million US. It continues on. In addition to being of great value, Scientology continues to try to recruit new members to the properties. At the same time, another defector, Robert Dam, states in a number of highly concerning matters within Scientology in his book, and it gives the name of the book, but that's in Danish, and I do not know the translation, so let me do that real quick. Hotels of Darkness is the name of his second book. Berlinski's articles on Scientology are now prompting politicians to take action. Quote, after all, what Scientology does is brainwashing, states Member of Parliament Kim Aas, church representative for the Social Democrats. This has the consequence that they can create a fortune, among other things, by purchasing properties. But there's especially a human consequence in that it destroys families. It is completely unacceptable and not something we have to accept in Danish society, he says. Kim will now take up Scientology's work in the Danish Parliament's Church Committee at the next committee meeting. Quote, I also want to contact the ministry of the church and hear what information there is in relation to danger signals and how the process has been around Scientology in recent years, says Kim. Annette Refstrup, who is the information manager for Scientology in Denmark, writes in an email to Berlinski, there are no minors in the Sea Organization today, and there haven't been for years. However, it is not clear, that's the quote unquote. And then it is stated, however, it is not clear when this practice ceased. Scientology did not want to be interviewed. I mean, I happen to know for a fact it is absolutely untrue that there are no minors in the Sea Organization. At least in the United States, a minor is anyone under the age of 18 years old. It is a 100% certainty that there are Sea Organization members under the age of 18. I know that for a fact. Scientology is recognized as a religion in some other countries, including the US. In Denmark, however, it's an organization. This means that Scientology's work falls under a number of different ministries and political agencies. Mai Mercado, who is a legal referent for the Conservative People's Party, believes that the social authorities must be involved. Quote, I believe there are some social authorities who should go out and end Scientology. Better today than tomorrow. Wow. It's a sect that is strongly culture bearing. And why shouldn't it still be? Why should it still be happening? I'm just going to read it as it's written. And why shouldn't it still be happening when it has been happening for so many years? Oh, interesting. Interesting. I think what he's saying is it's been happening all this time and we're supposed to think it's not happening now. That's what I take away from it. She adds that authorities that fall under the area of employment should also investigate the conditions. This also applies, quote, this also applies if they are adults who work under slave-like conditions. We simply cannot accept that in a country like Denmark, where we have rights and where we are protected by legislation, unquote. She wants to get Minister of Justice Peter Hummelgaard of the Social Democrat Party on the field to see where and how it can be used. Next section, European headquarters. Scientology was founded in 1950 when the American science fiction author L. Ron Hubbard published the book Dianetics, the Modern Science of Mental Health. Dianetics led to the birth of Scientology. Since 1969, Scientology's European headquarters has been located in Copenhagen. The Justice Referent for the Socialist People's Party, Karina Lorentzen Denhart, also believes that Scientology should be investigated. Quote, this gives reason to direct the spotlight on this organization and the activities they have in Denmark. I would like to ask the Justice Ministry to explain what knowledge they have and which authority and efforts are targeted at this. If children get into trouble in Denmark, we are obliged to help them, unquote. Justice Referent for the Left Party, Preben Bang Henriksen also believes that there is reason for extra vigilance when children are involved. There are deeply worrisome conditions we see documented around Scientology. There is, of course, an additional obligation for the social authorities with a view to checking the conditions of minors, unquote. Preben, okay, the same guy we're talking about. Preben points out, however, that there is already useful legislation in the area. Quote, at the same time, you have to ask whether from the legislator's side, we have to step in and regulate basically matters of a family and ideological nature. We already have provisions in the Contracts Act, including Section 36 on unfair agreements, that can be applied to any agreement that may be entered into. And if you are ineligible to sign an agreement, it is in itself illegal, unquote. Next section, falls down between the chairs. Justice referent for the Radical Left Party, Xenia Stampy, who's in the thumbnail of this video, also points out that the necessary legislation probably already exists. Quote, we have to be careful when we say that we're going to make a new law. It may well be that we have sufficient legislation already, but that the social authorities need to look a little more closely at Scientology, unquote. I like that one. Scientology's status in Denmark as an organization, while they define themselves as a religion, also means that it can be problematic to place them. I'm not sure what that means. Quote, the problem in a nutshell is that such an organization can fall between the different chairs and areas of responsibility. Therefore, they have managed to go under the radar and be guilty of things that I think a very large majority in Denmark believe are totally and completely unacceptable and probably also illegal. Interesting. It's interesting to me that how Scientology self-identifies creates somewhat of a problematic situation, because part of me wants to go like, who cares how they self-identify? But anyway, that's what the article says. Xenia Stampy will get a hold of Minister of Justice Peter Hummelgaard of the Social Democratic Party to find out what can be done. Helene Liliendahl Byronsholt, who is children and family rapporteur for the Alternative Party. And I had to look up that word, guys. I'd never heard that word in my life. Google says it's pronounced rapporteur. A person appointed by an organization to report on the proceedings of its meetings. There was another better definition I saw. Someone chosen by an organization to prepare reports of meetings or to investigate and report on a problem. Okay. Helene Liliendahl Byronsholt, who is children and family rapporteur for the Alternative Party, supports this. Quote, in the Alternative Party, we look very seriously at the reports from Scientology that point to the systematic exploitation of children in particular, but also adults, which Berlinski has uncovered. The quote continues, it is crucial that all religious organizations comply with Danish legislation and respect the individual's freedom and rights. If this is not the case, it may be necessary for social authorities to pay extra attention to ensure that no children are harmed, unquote. Victoria Velasquez is Employment and Working Environment Rapporteur for Hedelstein, and she wants the Norwegian Working Environment Authority. Okay, and she wants the Norwegian Working Environment Authority on board. Quote, it is clear that Danish working environment regulations have been broken. That's why we want to hear what the Working Environment Authority's efforts are so that these people, and especially the young people, don't get into trouble, says Victoria Velasquez. I guess Victoria Velasquez, not exactly the name I associate with someone in Copenhagen, but hey, you know, head of information in the Church of Scientology Denmark, Annette Refstrup, has only wanted to respond in writing to the criticism of Scientology. The written response reads, among other things, quote, as volunteers and members of the religious order, members of the Sea Organization, Scientology's elite unit, work long hours. They live in communal housing, eat together, and wear uniforms. They receive medical and dental care. Their transport is provided. In short, all expenses related to their duties are covered by the church. In addition, they get pocket money so that they can buy personal items as All other expenses are covered by the church. So that's what Cyril experienced. Yes, pocket money to buy personal items, by the way, such as like soap, toothpaste, socks. In their response to the criticism in Berlinski, Scientology does not deny that there have been working hours from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. every day of the week, just as the organization also does not relate to the fact that defector Cyril Chike was 16 when he signed a contract for the rest of his life and then worked to an extent that is in violation of the Danish law. So this last sentence, just when it says, just as the organization also does not relate to the fact, I think it does mean to say does not deny the fact. And that is the translation. Let me close this real quick. I mean, that's a pretty badass article, you guys. That really is great. The number of different politicians from different parties who are willing to go on the record there saying this is illegal, whether they were saying this needs to be investigated, this needs to be ended. I mean, that's amazing. That's better than I thought it would be. That's really all I wanted to do in this video today, guys, tonight. Let's see. We've got Barb helping me start some comments here. Let's see what we got. Windy City Thetan Watch. Yay, Scientology up north. Hiya, crew. Good to see you, Paul. We got Dylan Gill in the chat. Europe is willing to look at and change laws regarding minors. Come on, USA. Let's get it together. Yeah. I've said in a bunch of my videos that one of the reasons Scientology has been trying so hard to infiltrate the religious wing, the religious conservative wing of America's political establishment. I'm reiterating this right now because I'm surprised how many people get offended when I say this. So I want to say it again and explain what I mean and explain what the offense has been. Is that Scientology wants the mainstream religious political establishment to think that Scientology deserves their protection. That, kind of like Scientology kind of going, if they come for us, you're next. After all, we're one of you. When in reality, Scientology is completely and wholly incompatible with any of the world's mainstream religions. I mean, just wholly incompatible. And some of the comments that I see in response are offense. There seems to be many that think what I'm saying is Christians come to the defense of Scientology. And that is definitely not true. I've never seen that. I think Christians are horribly offended by Scientology. It is the political establishment that for some reason Scientology manages to make allies of them. And it's interesting to see this disconnect between people in the US who identify as religious and conservative, who are horribly offended at anything they hear about Scientology and the abuse. And they're like, those people are not one of us. They cannot sit at our table. And yet I challenge you to find a bureaucrat or an elected politician who would be considered to be representative of the conservative religious wing of the political establishment. Find one of them willing to call out Scientology. If you find it, send me the link, growingupinscientology@gmail.com. Because I think for some reason they have sort of this, the exact word's going to escape me. I think some of these elected leaders would sit there and go, well, how can I criticize them without other people criticizing me for the same thing? And I think one of the best things that could be done is to get the political leadership in the conservative right wing of the political establishment to understand that Scientology is really trying to get you guys to fight their battles for them. And this is all in response. Oh shit, Dylan's comment disappeared. This is all in response to what seems to be pretty obvious, that there's been an obvious reluctance on the part of U.S. politicians to do something about this. I mean, it is, after all, the U.S. political establishment that gave Scientology its tax-exempt status. Back in 1993. Yeah, thank you. And so anyhow, that's all I wanted to say on that. Thank you very, very, very much. Okay, I think I saw an email about this or a comment about this. Hey, Aaron, off topic here, but I was browsing ZipRecruiter and there was an ad for $19 an hour for Scientology auditors. That doesn't sound right? No, doesn't sound right. But if you send me a screenshot or a link to that, I would definitely do something on that. Suzanne Nordberget. Medical and dental are free in Denmark. Yes, that's how Scientology can claim to provide it. Oh, they're getting it. Ren Listen says, exhausting their slave labor to retain control. 9 o'clock in the morning, 11 o'clock at night, 7 days is illegal or should be. Yeah, like my history in Scientology obviously wasn't in Denmark, but I can tell you, it is almost impossible for me to figure out how to navigate this new StreamYard layout here. I'm operating on dark mode. I, from the age of 13 years old, 14 years old, and 15 years old, living in Clearwater, Florida, working at the Flagland base on a Sea Org schedule. That was I would even say the schedule was even a bit longer than that. Like, course started at 9 a.m. You had to already be up, showered, up, exercise, showered, transported to the base, had breakfast, gone over to the course rooms, and be in your seat for roll call for 9 a.m. So I don't know. I guess if you're telling the authorities what your schedule is, does the schedule begin like roll call? I guess maybe. I guess that's when the work day begins. So yeah, course started at 9 in the morning. Course ended at 10 o'clock at night. But your schedule, your schedule didn't end at 10 o'clock at night, and your schedule didn't start at 9 o'clock. You had to, because remember, there's no separation in this organization. There's no separation between your work life and your personal life. They're one and the same. So like your schedule says when you have to exercise. If you do, if they let you, if they don't cancel it, your schedule says when you have to be at. Oh, and it's exercise muster. That's why I'm thinking about it this way. There's exercise muster. You have to be outside in line for exercise roll call, and if you're missing, someone's going to come and get you. So it's not like you can just roll out of bed at 8:40 and then, skip breakfast and go to course roll call at 9 a.m. So, the day started at like 7:30, 7:45. And then just because course ended at 10 doesn't mean the schedule for the day ended at 10. You had cleaning stations, for example. And so, yeah, 9 a.m. to 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. That's normal. That's normal, if not even underplaying how many hours a Sea Org member typically works. And there's no separate schedule in the Sea Org for minors. It is all the same. Okay, let's see. Bo Beats, just a reminder, I support all things SPTV. That's great, Bo Beats. Great to see you. Thank you. Marissa Martin, from time to time, I see deeply religious, faithful people get offended on behalf of Scientology. It makes zero sense to me. All right, well, there you go. Marissa says, to be fair, U.S. politicians are reluctant to do anything about anything. All right, there you go. And macht mir doch egal. No, probably got that close this time. If one accredited religion is allowed to be investigated, all become fair game. So they protect them by default to protect themselves, and Scientology uses that. Exactly. But I got to tell you, that's definitely my understanding of how most U.S. politicians view it. But I really think the best way for, the conservative religious wing of the political establishment to strengthen their position, if that's what they wanted to do, is to make it clear that they do not tolerate the kind of stuff that Scientology, particularly for children. Now, as soon as you say children and religion, I know what you're all thinking. There's no getting away from that. But at least the abuse of children that we all know about, that occurs in some of the biggest religions that we all know about, at least those religions don't advocate for their right to be able to do that. And in Scientology, aside from, what everyone would consider to be obvious abuse, you have this weird special kind of thing that happens in Scientology where they take children and train them to be professional auditors and train them to interrogate adults about private age inappropriate matters. And that's just institutionalized child grooming and child abuse, where Scientology would fight for its right to do that. And to me, that makes the conversation about Scientology different than the conversation about abuse of children that has occurred in other religions. That's how I see it. I wish that's how more politicians saw it and realized there is a way to review Scientology without it being a slippery slope. That's my opinion, guys. But what do I know? I grew up in a cult. All right, let's see what else we got here. Eileen Bradley, those hours are illegal under the labor law, but for a volunteer position or for taking courses, it's probably a gray area, as voluntary technically should mean that you can just walk away. That is kind of what makes it a weird gray area for Scientology. And especially, but I think it also opens the door to an investigation because they say it's a volunteer position, but it's really not. You can't just walk away. Now they go, oh, well, you could, but there's consequences. And you go, well, okay. I mean, at what point is it not voluntary? Like, just because you're not getting paid doesn't mean you should be able to be abused in a way that if you were getting paid. So you see, it's so weird. So if we paid you, you'd have protections. But since we're not paying you, we can do whatever the hell we want to you. Doesn't make a lot of sense. Let's see. Condition confused says, Aaron, would giving Sea Org members essentials like nice socks help wake them up? I don't know if it would help wake them up. It sure would confuse the hell out of them in a good way. I assume you're talking about things like protesters around like L. Ron Hubbard way. What would happen if they were just giving away free socks to Sea Org members? It would be a great gesture. It might make people realize, well, are these guys really bad and evil if they're giving us things? I'll tell you, you might just want to give them toilet paper. Scientology does not provide toilet paper. In the shared bathrooms, most Sea Org birthing rooms do not have private bathrooms. On the main building on L. Ron Hubbard Way, each one of those floors, the main building is the V-shaped building with the big Scientology sign on top. I'm trying to recall. I think each one of those floors has 2 bathrooms on it. That seems insane, right? Because there's like 200 people on each floor. Some of the rooms have a private bathroom. Most of them don't. The shared bathrooms are supposed to be kept stocked by the estate's crew, the estate's org, but everyone steals the toilet paper because there's not enough toilet paper to go around. It would be cheaper to give all the Sea Org members free toilet paper than it would to give them free socks. But maybe the gift bag could have some toilet paper and some socks, maybe some soap, some deodorant. I mean, there is a little store, they call it a canteen, where the Sea Org members can go to buy their supplies, but they're not even getting these supplies at cost. There's a markup. The Sea Org marks up its own hygiene supplies to its own Sea Org members. It's absolutely insane. This is a multi-billion-dollar cult, and it doesn't even provide its most dedicated members with free toilet paper. No exaggeration, guys. It's actually one of the reasons they're able to accumulate so much money is their actual overhead is so low. They have no employee overhead practically. All right. Anne Chetrine. In Sweden, we have a law that your work week is 40 hours and we have to rest 11 hours per 24 hours. Sounds good to me. Oh, now what? Says comment. I assume this means 501c3, 401c3. 501c3 status means charitable organization, not religion, unless you want to call the SPTV Foundation a religion. That's true. I mean, any nonprofit organization is a 501c3. I could be wrong on this. Scientology's version of tax exemption goes beyond a mere 501c3. That's my understanding, but people can fact check me on that. Sovereign Brihon. If someone loses their housing and all of their connections for not doing it, that's extremely coercive. Exactly. Not exactly what would normally be happening in a volunteer position. Eat More Pizza Now says, don't shake their hands. Duly noted. Yes. No toilet paper, but there is. No, yeah, no one steals the soap. Well, because it's liquid soap. It's hard to steal liquid soap. Let's just steal the whole bottle, but that's being really greedy. Love Maddie says, at least they could put in bidets. You'd think they would. Amber Vanass, good to see you, Amber. Aaron, do you remember the old mattresses that they had there? Would be soccer players on them or baseball players from the 80s, maybe. On the mattresses themselves or on the sheets? No, I didn't. I did not see that when I was there. But I was I was at Flag from 93 to 96, and then I was at PAC from 2002 to 2006, but I didn't see any of that, Amber. That's funny. Melissa Montez. Wait, so if I send a care package to Scientology where the CR are at in Hollywood, they would distribute it to them? Boy, I'm not sure what this means. I'm going to guess that CR means Sea Org. So it says, so if I send a care package to Scientology where the Sea Org are at in Hollywood, would they distribute it to them? No, they would not. They would not distribute it to them. The people who open the package might just keep it all for themselves. Especially if you didn't have it addressed to a specific Sea Org member. If it was just addressed to the organization itself, the people in the Department of Communications that open that package would probably be like, oh, it's Christmas, and keep it all. That's my guess. Macht mich doch egal is back. Scientology got successfully sued for back pay in Germany, and they got similar labor laws with Denmark. That's incredible. I wonder who ended up getting that money. Because in order to sue Scientology, was the government suing Scientology on behalf of current employees, or was it former employees that were suing? Because I'll tell you what, if the government sued Scientology on behalf of current employees, it's kind of some sort of a class action thing. I'm guessing that money did not get distributed. Or when it did get distributed, those people had to give it right back over to Scientology for whatever. I hadn't heard about that. I'd be interested in hearing more about that. All right, everyone, that is it for now. There's more that I want to do tonight, but I don't know if I'm going to get to it. So stay tuned. Hopefully I can. Thank you. Wait, what's happening? Barb's saying you missed something. Oh, Dylan says, make a care package out to Jared Gill. Not saying, just saying. Dylan, we got to tell him where to send it to. If you're still in the live chat, Dylan, I'm going to stay on here. Jared must be your brother. I didn't know you had a brother. Hold on, Dylan. I'm going to stay on for just a few more moments, Dylan, if you're still here. Celebrity Center. Okay. So send a care package, toilet paper, socks, soap, deodorant. It's got to be unscented deodorant. And make it deodorant, not antiperspirant. Celebrity Center to Jared Gill. Oh my God. That would be absolutely amazing. Let's see. All right, guys. That's it for now. Thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you, as always, to everyone who watches until the very end. And I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe right here. Bye.